Not the prettiest of subject matter. Thankfully, now Detective Santarelli uses his camera for something a little less disturbing.
Doing photography outside of work is a tremendous stress reliever. It's quiet and it's peaceful, and it takes me away from the images of the brutality of a crime scene.
But when Santarelli learns he's working the murder in North Wales, he's once again faced with those horrific images. But this time, it won't be through the camera lens.
When I arrived at the crime scene, the Montgomery Township Police had already set up and secured the outside of the premises.
Santarelli's first order of business: reconstruct what happened within these walls. And he starts by talking to the surviving victims.
Understandably, they were hysterical because of the intrusion in the home. They had been duct taped, and it was just an incredible scene.
We were all like crazy to the point where it was just very hard to talk, to get words out. They were asking us simple questions of what's going on and how many people were there. It was very hard to explain things because what just happened.
Between Janice, Richard, and Mina Che, Santarelli is able to piece together the horrifying details.
Mrs. Che told investigators that she and her husband had gotten up that morning to go to their beauty supply store in Philadelphia. Mr. Che had exited the garage to warm his car up. Mrs. Che was still in the garage putting her shoes on, and as she was putting her shoes on, 3 men and her husband came into the garage.
That's when the nightmare began.
There was an altercation in the garage with Mr. Che and these 3 men. Mr. Che is duct taped and beaten.
After the initial attack, 2 of the men turned their attention towards Mrs. Che.
Mrs. Che was taken from the garage area to the second floor master bedroom and ordered to produce money and other valuable items.
Fearing for her life, Janice Che did as the gunman ordered.
Reluctantly, she told them where the safe was.
While Janice is forced to open the safe, both Richard and Mina are still sleeping, unaware anything was wrong.
As they were passing Mina's bedroom, she heard the scuffle and came out of her room and was immediately confronted by one of the gunmen. And she was taken downstairs and duct taped in the basement.
They went for Richard next.
I remember the guys that took me to the basement, tied me up there. I saw my sister and my mother. I didn't see my father. Where's my father?
Janice, Richard, and Mina are held in the basement while their father, Robert, is bound in the garage. Downstairs, one of the gunmen stands guard, but then briefly leaves.
The minute that my sister saw an opportunity that all the guys were not in the basement, she signaled my mother, telling her that there was nobody there. And that's when my mother left the basement back door.
Janice Che is able to escape to a neighbor's house to call for help.
After they found out that my mom was gone, they all left at once.
At that point, Richard springs into action.
I ripped the duct tape off of me, and I freed my feet, and I untied my sister, locked the door, make sure they can't get in.
The Che's tell investigators they got a good look at 2 of the 3 attackers.
Janice and Mina were able to give us very good descriptions of 2 of the men. They described the intruders as black males, wearing hooded sweatshirts, 1 heavy set, 1 thin with a beard.
It's a huge break. Police now have an idea of what the killers look like. With the help of a sketch artist, 2 composite drawings are created.
We published these composite drawings to the public through the media with the hopes that someone would come forward with information that would assist us in arresting these individuals.
Still, investigators can't hold their breath. They've got to figure out what happened on their own.
When we began this investigation, the only motive that we had to go on was robbery.
Everything at the scene seems to point to that theory.
There was cash taken from the home, from the safe, jewelry, designer pocketbooks.
But it's not just a few valuables and a couple $100 stolen from the home. The Che family had over $15,000 in their safe. Question is, did the perps get lucky? Or did they know the cash would be there?
We believed that the Chays were targeted. It appeared to us that the men knew there would be money.
If the family was in fact targeted, the perpetrators would have most likely scouted out the house beforehand. Perhaps someone in the neighborhood saw something, anything.
We questioned neighbors for many reasons, observations of cars that may have been in the area. Did they see someone walking in the neighborhood that did not typically belong there?
And it's not long before they catch a break.
We spoke with numerous people, and one of those individuals drove a recycling truck, and he described to us seeing a vehicle in the days prior to the incident occupied by 3 black males out front of the Chay house.
As suspected, the perps were most likely casing the Chay's home. And police have a hunch why this particular house may have been hit.
We thought that the people who committed this crime may have followed the Chays from their store to their home.
It's a thought Richard Chay shares.
The only thing I was thinking was maybe is it tied to work? Is it tied to, Penn Center Beauty Supply?
Within hours of the attack, police head to the store looking for clues.
We retrieved surveillance video from the Chay store and viewed several days of activity in the store to see if there was any activity that would be important to us in the investigation.
And soon, investigators spot something suspicious.
We saw 2 men, and they seemed to wander around the inside of the store and not seem to have any purchase in mind, and were similar in description to the composite drawings.
It appears these men aren't interested in buying any nail polish.
We asked the Chays to view the section of the video, and they did not indicate to us that they resembled the people who were in their home.
It's a dead end. There appears to be no connection. Perhaps police have it all wrong, and the burglars were just patrolling houses around the area, looking for a potential big score.
And I, at that point, did not know what to make of the situation.
And this case is about to get even more complicated when Robert Chay's autopsy report comes back.
This was a personal attack on Mr. Chay, and he was tortured.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are words this country is built on. For many in the world, the freedoms enjoyed by the United States are a doorway to a better life. And it's this American dream which 58-year-old Korean-American Robert Chay achieved before he was brutally murdered in his home.
This man had worked throughout his life to give advantages to his children and family. To see how his life ended was chilling.
And no one gets away with a murder like this in First Assistant District Attorney Kevin Steele's jurisdiction. He's a by-the-books lawman, a lot like his name, tough as steel.
This was a family that was getting ready to do what they did every day. They got ready to go to work, and they were accosted as they left. They didn't deserve this to happen to them.
It's a tragic end to a life that gets even more disturbing when Robert Chay's cause of death is determined.
Mr. Chay had died from asphyxia, meaning that he had basically drowned in his own blood.
The blood was a result of an extensive beatdown to his face and head.
The wounds inflicted on him caused a significant amount of bleeding that clogged his nose and prevented him from breathing because his mouth was covered with the duct tape.
Robert Chay died of a vicious beating, unable to defend himself. ADA Steele hopes the forensic lab might be able to turn up some evidence that can point them to the killers.
After we received the coroner's report, we focused on what evidence would help us to identify who did this.
And that evidence is the tape used to bind the Che family.
The duct tape was taken to the Pennsylvania State Police Laboratory for analysis. We asked them to try to figure out what pieces could potentially give them DNA.
Which may be easier said than done. Almost an entire roll of duct tape was used, and the perps were wearing latex gloves. Finding which sections might contain DNA is a crapshoot.
The laboratory took a roll of duct tape and started looking at how that could be ripped. And she came to a conclusion that the tape may have been ripped by putting it to your mouth and ripping down the sides.
DNA can be transferred from saliva to objects, especially in this situation, tearing it with the teeth.
And their hunch is right.
The tape that was found in the basement contained a DNA profile of one of the people who entered the home.
But the good news doesn't end there.
We found a section of a black latex glove in the garage.